concrete walls. There's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Livestream. Very happy that you're with me here on a Sunday afternoon. A beautiful, beautiful Sunday afternoon, where I am at least. It is a gorgeous day. Spring is coming. It's time to get your quadcopters all in good shape, ready for the transition from whoop season to outdoor season. Hell yes. That day is coming. That day is coming. You know, some people, spring comes, they start putting plants in the ground. Some people, spring comes, they start putting motors on their quads. I certainly have a lot of broken quads that I got to get back in the air. But it's time. It's just time. I'm so tempted to be like, I ain't streaming today. I'm just going to go fly. But, you know, I could have flown yesterday, and instead I played Elden Ring for like 6 hours. So, you know, we got to balance. It's all about balance. Right? That's what they say. Work-life balance, family, Elden Ring, quadcopters. But of course, I could not skip a live stream. Come on. Gotta be. Oh, you can see a little bit of purple on my shirt. How about that? That's kind of weird. Coming from the side. Of course, I could not skip a live stream. I gotta be here with you on a Sunday afternoon. That's nowhere I'd rather be. And I'm glad you're here with me. We are going to do some Q&A for about 2 hours, and then I am going to go fly, or maybe play more Elden Ring. Don't know yet. Oh, here's what's going on. Are you new here? Whoop, whoop, hey. Don't need to. Yeah, here we go. Are you new here? If you're new here, first of all, just say hello. Nice to see you. Very glad to have you here, and I will be taking your questions here in the chat. I will be taking your questions here in the chat. I will also be paying attention to the Discord server here on the right. This is my Discord. So you see they get half the screen. These beautiful people are my patrons. Ooh, there's a discussion going on in the moderator channel. Let's click on that on the live stream. No, let's not. We're going to stick to the live stream chat. Hello, everybody. Hello, Joey, Aerobrat, Rauk FPV, Mupshot, Northern Tier, Sander DeBronner. Good to see you, my friend. Sander DeBronner. Yes, sir. All glad that you're here. But I will be taking everybody's messages. Including if you want to make sure that I get your message, hit the $ down here on the bottom and leave a super chat to make a contribution during the stream, and I'll be reading those super chats a little bit later, like this question from Justin Rice. I will be getting to that before too long. Oh. Let's take a question from the regular chat, though, just so we don't give the wrong impression. And this question's from Angry Pepper, who asks, what's the best upgrade for DJI goggle antennas for penetration? So let's take this opportunity to discuss how antennas work, and specifically how antennas create gain. So it makes sense that a higher gain antenna gives you more range and penetration, right? It makes sense. So why wouldn't you just want the highest gain antenna possible? And the answer to that is that higher gain antennas are usually physically larger. To get that gain, the antenna becomes physically larger. And so there's a certain size of antenna that you just don't want hanging off your goggle. And that's why we don't see like a big, like a 1 foot or 2 foot dish antenna. That's going to have like 25 dB of gain, perhaps. And it's going to weigh several pounds. And you just wouldn't have that hanging off your goggles, right? So the real reason and the main reason that we don't just go to higher gain antennas has to do with the way that antennas produce gain. You see, if you have an amplifier, an RF amplifier, it has a power source. The RF signal comes into the amplifier, and the amplifier consumes power from an external source, and it amplifies the signal. It makes it more powerful. It adds energy to it. That's what an amplifier does. An antenna is not an amplifier. An antenna doesn't have an external power source. So how does an antenna get additional gain, right? And the answer is that an antenna gets additional gain by focusing the signal. Okay, so if you think about a flashlight with an adjustable beam, you can adjust it out and it has a wide beam. You can adjust it down and it has kind of a pencil beam, a spotlight. That's exactly what an antenna is doing to some degree. So when you have a high gain antenna, you are giving up beam width. You are giving up the breadth of your coverage in exchange for focusing that coverage down into a narrower beam. So for example, let's say you had a 360 degree omni antenna. That's going to be about 2 dBi, 2 decibels of gain. That's what those are. Let's say you then take a reflector and you put that reflector behind the antenna so that half of the signal that goes behind is instead reflected to the front. Okay? Assuming that system is perfectly efficient, like in reality, you're going to get losses when you bounce that signal. Some of it's not going to bounce, but let's just assume that signal is perfectly efficient. What you're going to get is, instead of a 360 degree coverage, you're going to get a 180 degree coverage, and you're going to get double the gain. The half of the signal that was going behind you now is going in front of you, so you have twice as much in front of you and none in the rear. In reality, the coverage is not like black and white like that, but that is essentially how antennas work. And I've been talking about antennas, I've been saying coverage, and a lot of people think that means only on the transmission side, but it works both transmit and receive. And this is where the flashlight analogy breaks down a little bit, because flashlights transmit light, they don't receive light, but antennas go both ways. So, going back to Angry Pepper's question, What is the best upgrade for DJI goggle antennas for penetration? Well, the best upgrade would be to have 4 25 dBi dish antennas mounted on a stand, and you would get a shitload of penetration. But your beam would be like a 1 degree beam width. So you wouldn't be able to fly, you would only be able to fly in a straight line there and back. And it would cost a lot of money and weigh a lot of weight, pounds. It would be heavy. So whenever you think about the best antenna for an application, you have to think about cost, obviously, but they all cost roughly, that's probably within your budget, the various antennas. You have to think about the coverage pattern relative to where you fly, and you have to think about the size and weight of the antenna. And when you're talking about FPV goggles, think about the, hang on. Think about the Immersion RC LRZ antenna. The Spyronet LZR antenna, my bad. So this is a directional antenna for your Fat Shark goggles, for your analog goggles. I wish I could get a better picture of it. It goes on the front of the goggles, and it is highly directional with 13 dBi of gain. Can we get a picture of it on the goggles? Here it is, mounted on the front of the goggles. Not a great picture, but you get the idea. If you have these antennas on your goggles, you are going to get a ton of coverage in front of you, but like very little coverage behind you. And so you'll have to think about, where am I going to be standing relative to where I'm flying? Do I need to fly? Am I standing in the middle of the flying location, or am I standing to the edge of it? And if you stand to the edge of the flying location, these could be good antennas. But if you stand in the middle, this is a very bad choice. So to get back to Angry Pepper's question, I think that a lot of people who fly the DJI system are very happy with the balance struck by the iFlight Crystal, which has a combination of I think it's a 9 dB gain. It's a medium dB. It's not like, it's got still a wide enough beam pattern that you don't have to like constantly keep hunting around with your head to keep the quad in the beam pattern. And it's combined with some analog or some omni antennas to give you more circular coverage. If you wanted to go further, you could go with something like the True RC X-Air DJI. And this is going to be, no, where's the 4? That's still just 2 patches. That's still just 2 patches, though. See, for these, I dislike this style because I don't like having to take them off when I put the goggles away. And I like the fact that the crystal replaces, it's integrated. What about the Vaz Cyclops? That may be the one I was thinking of. Yes. So the Vaz Cyclops, here the Mini is the one, actually I think is the best. The Vaz Cyclops Mini is actually 4 antennas in one. So it's a single unit that you mount to the goggles. But it actually connects to all 4 antenna connectors. And still has about 10 dB of gain. But because it's 10 dB of gain on all 4 antennas, you're going to get better penetration. At a certain point, you might decide to go with like a 12 or a 13 dB antenna, but you're going to have to buy 4 of them, and they're going to add weight. And I think that if you really care about penetration, the Vaz Cyclops is a great way to go. But for general purpose use, the iFlight Crystal has a great balance of penetration and size and price. All right. Now, that's a great question to get us started with the stream. Thank you so much, Angry Pepper, for that question. Let's go ahead and get a couple of these super chats before we go too far. Justin Rice, thanks for a $5 super chat. Thanks for what you do. I'm looking at the T-Motor F100 motors. Some stores state 57.5 grams, others say 65 grams. How do I know which is accurate? I don't know how you could know which is accurate other than to find somebody who has one and ask them to weigh it. I would normally say that probably that's the length of the wires. Some of them are measuring with the full length of wires as delivered, and some are cutting the wires down. You could ask a store, like you could do this. Email all of the major stores you shop at who have those motors in stock and say, hey, would you mind pulling the motor off the shelf? Just open it up real quick, weigh it. I guess it's probably in a plastic bag. They probably wouldn't want to break the plastic. Maybe they couldn't do that. There we go. My guess is that the 57.5 grams is with short wires and 65 grams is the full length of the wires, though. Paul McDonald, thank you for a $4 super chat. Is it okay to use SpeedyBee with Betaflight 4.3? I don't know the answer to that, Paul. SpeedyBee app in the past has had compatibility issues with Betaflight pre-releases, and I would recommend not using it unless you're sure it won't screw up your configuration. I can just try a search, but I'm guessing you did that. Can I configure Betaflight 4.3? This is January 2022. That was a little while ago. Yeah, that's still saying you can't do it. I would want to know, let's look at the SpeedyBee. Hard to know. I wouldn't be sure that it was compatible unless SpeedyBee told me. Now, good point. Can I point out that Betaflight has an Android app, an official Android app. I'll put this in the chat for you. And you have to sideload it. Okay? It's not available in the App Store. You have to sideload it. But you can do it. So that is surely compatible, right? No release is published. What version is this? I guess it doesn't say what version it is. Do we know whether this is 3.8 or what? I don't know. Worth a try. Bilo, thank you for $36.99. QAR. Qatari Rial. Thank you for $36.99. Qatari Rial. How to get the maximum range for my DJI Goggle V2 like in stadiums and malls. That style of project. 1200 milliwatts. Definitely be at 1200 milliwatts. Have a good set of antennas. If you wanted to get something like the Vaz Cyclops, if you knew you would be flying in front of you. Let's see, what else? Is he going to get more range out of 25 meg than 50 meg? I'm not sure about that. T4J FPV says the Android version is the same repo as the Windows Linux Mac version, so that would be 3.8 compatible. Mike Speedy FPV, thanks for £5. And Moutine 2007, thanks for 20 Canadian dollars. No questions attached to those, just donations. Thank you very much for that. Greg Gerber says the Android app is old, not compatible with 4.3. But T4J FPV, who is in my Discord, disagrees and says the Android version is in the same repo as the Windows Linux Mac version. Who is right? Does anyone know who's right? T4J, where are you seeing what's new for that? Here's the README. Is this useful? Known issues, roadmap. I still don't see a definitive answer. Does this have an Android version here? Wait a second. So this is the standard configurator. Does it have an Android version included in RC3? Oh, look at that. Okay, so that's what we should have done. I see. Go to the standard Betaflight configurator repo, and they're including the Android APK there. Got it. Yep, there it is. That's what you want. That's definitely 10.8.0, and it's definitely compatible. Worth pointing out, that does not have Bluetooth support, only USB. So you would need a USB OTG cable or adapter. A crazy pilot wants to know, what's the best battery size for 5-inch racing? What's the best battery size for 5-inch racing? That depends on the type of track you're doing. Most racers are running between about an 1100 milliamp hour 6S and a 1300 milliamp hour 6S. It depends a lot. Like for qualifying, you may want a smaller battery that you're just going to burn to the ground because you need to go as fast as possible. But then for the actual race, you may want a little bit of a bigger battery because you need to be a little bit more resilient and you don't want to kill batteries every time. But most people, I think, are running between about an 1100 and a 1300 milliamp hour 6S. Bobby Baggs thinks a 1400 6S R-Line is the best. That seems awfully heavy, Bobby. Maybe Tattoo has got the weight down, but that seems awfully heavy. What do I know? I'm not a racer. I actually am stealing Evan Turner's answer. I saw him answer this question on Facebook earlier this week. If I remembered where I saw it, I would just bring it up. But instead, I don't remember, so I'm just repeating his answer. Whenever anybody has a racing question, I just copy whatever Evan Turner says. Because what, really, I could do a lot worse, right? Apache Smoke Wounded Sniper in the Discord. Thank you for being a patron. I'm running 2206, 2600 kV motors. I need to replace them. I can only get 2207. Will this be an issue? No. They'll be a little heavier. Frankly, I think the 2207 is going to be a little torquier and a little more responsive. The kV is basically the same. I don't think you're going to have an issue. Are you talking about mixing them? If you mix them, you still probably won't notice a difference. But definitely, if you just buy 4 new motors, it's going to be fine. It's possible if you have a PID tune that is like right on the edge, the additional torque of the 2207 motors may mean you have to reduce your gains a little bit, but probably you haven't tuned it to that degree, and it's probably not going to matter. Rocket wants to know. Rocket, also a a patron in the Discord server. Do you have a setup video for the Sovol SV01? Yeah, I think I do. Right? Surely I do. Seems like I do. Here's the BL Touch and Silent mainboard install. This is just a review. It's not a setup video. This is a firmware upgrade. Yeah, I mean, these are the videos. This is all I've got to show you. That's all of them, though. Let's see here. Eat Your Veg. Eat Your Veg, FPV. Thank you for a 20-pound super chat. Thank you for your generosity. I think I just became the first to officially kill an HD0 1-watt VTX by drowning it in a foot of water on a bando roof. Hope it dries out. Power and camera LEDs, but no signal output. Ouch. Ouch. I mean, there you go. NB Links wants to know, which VNA would you recommend for FPV antenna analysis? NB Links, I would refer that question to Sander DeBronner, who is currently in the Discord, and we'll see if he answers what he thinks, what he uses. You know, that's just one person's recommendation, but we'll see what he says. Or Sander, if you are, if you're in the YouTube chat, you can just answer directly. All the VNAs are out. You can get inexpensive VNA style devices up to about 1 gigahertz that work okay. But once you're up to 5 gigahertz, then yikes, they're expensive as crap. Angry Pepper, there is no marker in the YouTube chat for patrons. It's only in the Discord that patrons are marked. Cygnus, thank you for a $5 super chat. Hang on 1 second. Live chat. Cygnus. Cygnus says, need some help, JB. I smoked two brand new motors on a brand new ESC. What are the chances the flight controller is causing the motors to smoke? How do I troubleshoot this? Okay, so this is a tough one. Can a flight controller cause your motors to smoke? Ooh. Let's do a poll. Can a FC cause your motors to smoke? We're going to put a poll up, and we're going to come back to this one. Phantom FPV, good to see you, man. Happy Sunday. Hope you're getting some flying. I want to see what the chat says, and then I'll come back to this question, and I'll tell you my answer. Brandon Weber, thanks for a $10 super chat. I got the Zing 2506 1850 kV. They are epic, but you need to have a 60 amp ESC and a battery capable of 220 amp draw. Just thought the community should know I learned the hard way. Big motors on big props with a heavy quad will draw a lot of amps. It's true. Vitrifly, thank you for a $5 super chat. Yo JB, I just installed Edge TX on my Radio Master, but I no longer have the option to change Crossfire config. Any idea how to do so? Vitrifly, I'm going to guess that what you're saying is that you didn't, when you downloaded the SD card contents, you didn't then re-download the Crossfire TBS Agent Lite Lua script. None of the OpenTX SD card contents come with those Lua scripts by default. I'm going to guess that you just forgot long ago that you downloaded that Lua script. So when you go from OpenTX to EdgeTX, you should take the opportunity to download the latest Lua scripts. And that you need to go and download TBS Agent Lite Lua script. BW, thanks for a $5 super chat. I got my TX16S and I have 2 quads with Ghost. Didn't you do a video on making one model in the radio to control both my quads? Yeah, BW, you don't have to do anything special there. Just bind both quads to the module and use the same model for both of them. There's nothing special you need to do. Just make sure they're all set up the same. Okay, let's go back and end this poll. And let's see what people thought. I just ended the poll. Should pop up in the chat any second now, right? The answer is that yes, the flight controller can smoke the motors, but there's more to it than that. And now we should dive in. 59% yes, 40% no. How can a flight controller cause motors to smoke? The answer to that question is, how can a flight controller affect the heat of the motors? If the flight controller commands the motors to speed up and slow down faster than they can do it, the excess energy that the ESC is putting into the motor will translate to heat. Think about if you rub your hands together and there's friction, right? Right? Versus if you rub your hands together and they're soapy and you have lubrication, right? When you input energy into something and it doesn't get used up as mechanical energy, then it turns into heat. So let's think about a motor, and the motor is just spinning, right? There's very little friction in the bearing. Everything is fine. Let's think about a motor, and the motor is standing still, and you immediately try to make the motor go to full throttle. And on top of that, what if you grab the motor? You just grab it so it can't spin. What happens to a motor when you try and make it go to full throttle and you don't let it spin? You get heat buildup. Anytime you try to make a motor spin and it isn't going the speed that it's being commanded to go, you get heat buildup. There's also heat buildup other times, but that's a cause of heat buildup. So when we accelerate a motor, the harder we try to accelerate the motor, the more heat builds up in the motor because the motor has mass and it can only change speed so fast, right? So anytime you try to accelerate a motor, there will be a delay and there will be heat buildup in the motor as the motor lags behind the electric field that's trying, the magnetic field that's trying to cause it to speed up. So the way that a flight controller can heat a motor up is by sending a very fast motor signal that the motor can't possibly keep up with. That the motor is just spinning and the flight controller is going, speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. And there's heat buildup in the motors. So what causes that? Insufficient filtering. The whole point of filtering is to filter out high-frequency vibrations in the motor signals and in the gyro. Insufficient filtering causes heat buildup. Excess D-gain. The D term is actually an amplifier of high-frequency signals. That's just what it does. That's another way of describing what it does. That's not how we usually describe it because it's unintuitive to most people, but the D term is actually amplifying high-frequency noise. So insufficient filtering, excess D-gain causes hot motors. So a flight controller can smoke motors. But here's the thing. If you arm your quad, and the minute you arm the quad, boom, the motor smokes. That's not your flight controller. Your flight controller didn't do that. That's the ESC, or the motor, or the wiring. If you go for a flight, and you come back from the flight, and your motors are hot, and you go, screw it, I'm going to rip some more, and you rip some more, and at the end of just ripping balls for like 3 packs, your motors are smoked, that, or your motors are hot, and you bend a prop, and you keep flying on the bent or broken prop, and now you smoke a motor. That's your flight controller. But if the minute you arm or the minute you plug in, boom, the motor smokes, that's the ESC or the motor. So, going back to Cygnus's super chat, I smoked 2 brand new motors on a brand new ESC. When did they smoke? Did they smoke as soon as you armed? Yeah. And Cygnus goes on to ask, so Cygnus says they smoked when I was bench testing with sliders in the Betaflight Motors tab. Yeah, so that cannot be the flight controller because the PID loop is not active. So the filters and the D term are not relevant when you're using the Motors tab sliders in Betaflight Motors tab. That's 100% an ESC or a motor or a wiring issue. I mean, like, as much as anything in the world is 100%. I would say the flight controller, I guarantee the PIDs and the filters are not relevant when you're using the Motors tab sliders. Okay. Good question. Can a bad gyro smoke motors? Yes, Aaron. Yes. Laws FPV has an interesting question. Laws says, how would someone recover their analog OSD after you set your OSD for HD0's canvas mode? It's probably the CLI option. I'm like 99% sure it's the CLI option. Let's plug a flight controller in here real quick and just glance at Betaflight. So what you want to do is go into the CLI and no, not that. Let's type, yeah. No. That's too many OSDs. That's not right. That's, so DisplayPort MSP serial. Oh, sorry. You guys can't see that. There we go. DisplayPort MSP serial by default is -1 on an analog And then what's the other change you make for HD0? I can't remember. DisplayPort device, I think. Yes, get OSD DisplayPort device. That's not right. Yeah. Okay, these are the two things you need to change. You need to set DisplayPort MSP serial equals -1 and OSD DisplayPort device equals auto. For HD0, you set OSD DisplayPort device to MSP, and you split this. I think that actually is probably the only change you need to make. Set OSD DisplayPort device equals auto. Okay. Boom. NB links. Obviously, Sander DeBronner knows more about this than me, so I defer to whatever he says. But in the past, I have looked for 5.8 gigahertz RF equipment for testing antennas. Everything above like 1 gigahertz is super expensive. It's just super expensive. Thousands of dollars minimum. And it's so tempting because like you can get a 900 megahertz VNA for a few $100 and you're like, oh, it's so awesome. As soon as you go up above 1 or 2 gigahertz, it's super expensive. I think you're going to struggle to find anything good, but maybe Sander, you might be able to find some used stuff that you could get a hold of. But it's pretty expensive. Because high frequency is hard. Virgin FPV, thank you for a €2 super chat. No, I'm done talking about your frame on live streams. No offense, nothing personal. I don't have anything more to add. And I appreciate your donation, but I don't have anything more to say about that. We're moving on. I don't want this live stream to turn into the Virgin FPV frame live stream. NB Links says the Light VNA 64 claims to go to 6 gigahertz and costs 120 USD. I am so skeptical. Like, what is it doing? I'm so skeptical, to be honest with you. Can there really be a $200 6 gigahertz VNA? I mean, just because AliExpress sells it and it claims to be able to go to 66 gigahertz does not mean it's worth a damn. I'm so skeptical that it's worth a damn. Sander DeBronner. Yeah, there we go. Sander DeBronner says, forget that one. It's just a clone of the 4 gigahertz one, but they didn't change the necessary components. Yeah. I'm impressed that there's a $200 VNA that goes to 4 gigahertz, to be honest. Madstech says, why do you want a VNA? That's the real question. Good question. Moutine 2007, thank you for a 10 Canadian dollars super chat. I went with the DJI goggles and transmitter for the goggles cash giveaway. Thank you. Oh, did I do a giveaway? That was a long time ago, if so. Dominique Campdell, thank you for a $20 super chat. No question, just want to say thanks for helping the community. Thank you so much. Sandra DeBronner says the Nano VNA 2 goes up to 4 gigahertz and is not that bad. That's impressive. I'm impressed that there's even a 4 gigahertz one that is not bad for that price. Unfair Frame 653 wants to know, can any flight controller do D-Shot if the ESC supports it? I mean, the firmware has to be built into it. But yeah, any Betaflight flight controller supports D-Shot these days. Joey Stunts wants to know, how serious is it to fly at 800 milliwatts without a ham license? Am I going to prison? So first of all, the output power doesn't matter. You guys, I want to just beat this misconception into the ground. in the United States, there is no output power threshold where you don't need a ham license to use an analog video transmitter. Every analog video transmitter that is not Part 15 certified requires you to have a ham license. And none of them are Part 15 certified. There aren't any. Every analog video transmitter requires a ham license. In Europe, my understanding, Europeans, tell me if I'm right, I'm not 100% sure. In Europe, my understanding is below 25 milliwatts, you don't need a license. Okay, that's Europe. That's not the US. Okay, so the 800 milliwatt, 25 milliwatt, 1 milliwatt, doesn't matter. It's not Part 15 certified, therefore you need a ham license. In fact, you could have a device that would pass Part 15 certification in every way, and if no one actually submitted it to a lab to be tested and certified, you still need a ham license to use it. Okay. So, the other question that Joey wants to know is, am I going to prison? No. How do people get in trouble for broadcasting without a ham license? This is the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that you do something that pisses off a ham operator, that they notice you are making trouble for them, and then they get pissed off and they come find you, and they report you to the FCC. That's usually how it happens. So the question is, operating in the 5.8 gigahertz band, is that going to happen? And the answer is no. Because any hams who are actually serious about avoiding interference are not operating in 5.8 gigahertz, because there is a 5.8 gigahertz ham band. It overlaps with the ISM band, and I think it also overlaps with the UNII band, the uni band. And because that 5 gigahertz ham band overlaps with two unlicensed 5 gigahertz bands, any ham who cares is not going to be there. And the other thing is, there you are broadcasting at 800 milliwatts in 5.8 gigahertz. No one cares. So the answer is no one cares. And you will probably never hear. I have never heard of the FCC coming after an FPV pilot for not having a ham license. Literally never heard of it. So, there you go. There you go. You're probably fine. You're not going to prison. Virgin FPV, thanks again for a €2 super chat. I'm just not interested, man. Sorry. I'm not interested right now. I appreciate your donation. Now, 507RC says you should get a ham license because you'll learn a ton of good stuff. I disagree. No offense. No offense, 507RC. The ham license stuff had a tiny bit of electrical information that was interesting and useful. And then the vast majority of it was ham stuff that I don't care about because I'm not interested in using a ham radio to talk to other people. It was all ham radio stuff that I don't give a shit about because I mean, if you're into ham, then good for you. But as an FPV pilot, it was simply a hoop I had to jump through. It didn't teach me really anything, almost anything useful. There's like 15% of the content is vaguely useful for FPV in, understanding how radio systems work. The vast majority of it was ham specific stuff that if you're not getting into ham radio, you don't care about. Alrighty. Tommaso Zuccoi has a very interesting question. Tommaso Zuccoi says, how much do you trust Betaflight return to home? I've heard people saying stuff, but I never got a numerical value. What about iNav? Betaflight return to home is not called return to home, it's called GPS rescue. And the idea is that if you're about to lose your quad anyway, maybe GPS can rescue you. It is extremely rudimentary. It is very difficult to troubleshoot because when it fails, it doesn't give you any feedback. And when Betaflight GPS rescue fails, it doesn't have a graceful fallback. It just disarms the quad and the quad falls out of the air. And then, since it doesn't have a lot of troubleshooting feedback, like you don't get an error message on your screen saying why it failed, why did it fall out of the air, you don't know. All you know is that you tried to GPS rescue and it fell out of the air. Good luck. You have to just guess what might be the problem and cross your fingers the next time that it doesn't happen again. Now, there are people who can get Betaflight GPS rescue working reliably and who say they use it regularly and don't have a problem with it. Good for them. For it to really be at the level of something, I mean, like people talk about, well, I had a DJI quad and it GPS rescued and it flew to the moon, right? It happens. But I feel like Betaflight is, I'm thankful to the dev who did the work because, hey, it's there and they put the work in. But when you look at something like iNav or ArduPilot, for whom GPS flight is a core function, it has been tested and debugged and made, like, iNav, like the idea that you would activate GPS rescue and if you don't have enough satellites, the quad just falls out of the air, it disarms, is preposterous. And the only reason it does that is because the devs didn't do the additional work to have it fail gracefully. And since they can't take the chance that it fails in a catastrophic way, they just disarm the quad. But if you look at iNav, if you try to activate GPS rescue in iNav, well, iNav won't even let you take off without enough satellites locked. You see, iNav takes steps to prevent catastrophic failure in a proactive way that Betaflight doesn't, because it's not a core function of Betaflight. So how much do I trust it? I don't trust it at all. If I had a situation where the alternative was dropping the quad in the ocean, yeah, I'd have GPS rescue, and maybe it would save me. But I would never intentionally activate return to home without testing the shit out of it, and even then, there's a chance that it won't work for various reasons. If you're serious about GPS rescue, you really want iNav or Pixhawk, not Betaflight. If you're locked into Betaflight for some other reason, it can be useful, but I don't, trust it. Aethix wants to know, what's a decent flight controller for 8 motor outputs? I just saw the T-Motor FC in our new product roundup. The T-Motor F7. There's a new T-Motor stack, though. Where's the new T-Motor stack? I guess I could go look at the new product roundup. It has 8 outputs, though. Let's just go look at the new product roundup. Here we go. So this is a new... Shut the F up. Shut the F up. How is that the wrong link? Are you joking? Are you joking? Are you joking? Did I screw this up? All of these are the wrong... Are you joking? Wow, sorry about that, guys. That's a freaking joke. Hang on one second. I need to ping somebody about this. Okay. Whoops. Those are all the wrong links. Let me just fix that real quick. Jesus Christ. Unbelievable. Okay. Fun. That's depressing. We use an automated tool to create these links. And if I can't trust that tool, then I'm going to be really depressed. Okay, so the other links seem to be correct. Christ almighty. I must have screwed that up somehow. Okay, that's all correct. Okay. Sorry, guys. Let's try this again. Yeah, RGMG, the links are created by a tool that searches the stores and creates the links automatically. If that isn't working, then it's going to be a lot of manual work. So I'm hoping that this will turn out to be a human mistake and not a mistake in the tool. Anyway, I'm just annoyed at that. But anyway, that's not the right flight controller. I'm coming back to... Is that the right one? No. T-Motor just released a new flight controller, which has... No, where is it? Which has 8 motor outputs. Now I can't find it. All right. This whole thread has just pissed me off. Let's do something else. RGMG says, personally, I don't trust automation from experience. Yeah, but I mean, automation, if it saves hours of manual work, then... Anyway, Athix. Athix, there is a T-Motor flight controller with 8 motor outputs. Probably worth a look. Lord almighty. F7 Pro. Yeah, Joseph Tahari has it from Race Day Quads. Hallelujah. Yeah, here we go. Look at this. Look at this. Can you believe this? Look at this plug. It's a giant plug with 8 motor outputs in it. Bada bing. I'm so annoyed that those links are wrong. Like, that's the whole point. Eric Maggard says, are you going to build the new Rotor Riot Skylight drone? Are you going to build the new Rotor Riot Skylight drone? So, you know, I'm always interested in whatever Rotor Riot's doing. You know, I am a Rotor Riot pilot, and you know, these guys are my friends, and I support their success. I talked about this with some people who I will allow to remain anonymous unless they want to out themselves. And basically their take was that it's too heavy. Like, what they've basically done is taken a Skyliner. They've taken a Skyliner, which is a fine freestyle frame. They've scaled it down to 3 inches. And then they added some braces. Fine. And they added some big, chonky 3D printed ducts. And it's heavy. And also, this style of ducts seems to have mostly gone out of style. Because unless you custom make the prop to ride very, very close to the duct, you don't get any actual efficiency advantage. So most designs, I mean, this design is really a little bit out of date for not for just for stylistic reasons, but for sort of technical reasons. So we've got something like the Cinesplore here. It uses this style of ducts. Don't get me wrong. But if you're going to use this style of ducts, you need a prop that is like less than 1 millimeter from the duct. And most ducts just don't have that tolerance. And so you may as well just have prop guards at that point. So what we've got here, and this is not just my opinion, I talked to people I know who fly Cinewhoops professionally, because I'm like, what do I know? You asked me about 5-inch freestyle quads. I'm like, yes, I can confidently talk out of my ass. For Cinewhoops, I want to get a second opinion. And their opinion is that the frame hasn't been designed first and foremost as a Cinewhoop, and that as a result of that and the style of duct, it's going to be pretty heavy compared to other stuff in this category. So that was their take. That was their take. Right, Yarb's FPV, that's correct. So Yarb's FPV, the Cinesplorer, and the original Shendrones, what they did is they cut their ducts, they printed their ducts out of soft TPU, and then they took a 4-inch prop and they shaved the 4-inch prop down to a bullnose with a jig. And that prop was big enough that it literally dug into the TPU and cut a groove. And as a result, it would ride right on that duct. And then you get an efficiency advantage. But if there is even like a millimeter or a millimeter and a half, the actual value depends on the radius of the prop, the diameter of the prop. But for a 3-inch prop, you have to be like less than a millimeter from the duct wall to get an efficiency advantage. And you just aren't if you're using off-the-shelf props. So. John Rose, thanks for a $5 super chat. Can you check the patron troubleshooting on Discord? My question's too big for the chat window. Alrighty. Well, for a $5 super chat, I'll do it. And for a $5 super chat from a patron, I'll definitely do it. John Rose asks, where's your question, John? I got to scroll back through here. John Rose says, I was sitting on the ground and I tapped my yaw to the right with no throttle bump to turn my drone before taking off. On the second yaw spin tap, it took off to the moon in a crazy yaw spin. Okay, right there, like, that's a problem, obviously. My point is that that's not like, oh, my PIDs are too high. Something radical is wrong with your quad. Like if you disabled all your filters completely, including all your D-term filters, that could cause, but that's not related to the yaw. It's just the quad is like, it won't fly, period. So he goes on to say, someone was tightening my motor screws trying to troubleshoot jello at mid-throttle. And I said, don't tighten them too much because it might touch the motor. I wouldn't think that this would cause you to fly to the moon, although it's not impossible. Now he shows a video here. Let's have a look at this video he shows. No, I disagree. I disagree. No offense to whoever you're talking to there. The gyro will always have the gyro will never just be at 0. So like, let me prove that. I mean, maybe I'll turn out to be wrong. It depends on the settings. That's my hedge. So this flight controller is just sitting on my desk. Oh, they say that's the wrong question. Well, I'll keep diving in anyway because now I've started. Let's go to motors. Look at my gyro right here. Let me zoom in. My flight controller is just sitting on my desk. It's not going anywhere. Do you see that these numbers are still flipping out? Well, they're not flipping out, but there's always background vibration. See, now it's going to jump, right? If I tap the desk. But just sitting here. Can I reset? Oh, let's see. Just sitting here. Like, if you look at the max, I'm not even touching the desk right now. X is about -2, Y is about -3, Z is about -2. That's the max. Let me just gently click the mouse. and not touch the desk. See? And if I I just bumped the desk with my hand. Now I put my elbow on the desk. See, we're getting big numbers just from little bumps on the desk. But even if I don't touch the desk, I'm getting 2 to 3 as the max. By the way, in case you're not clear, the max is these numbers in parentheses. We're getting 2 to 3 as the max just from ambient vibration with an RMS of about 1.2. So this is just background noise. This is not a bad gyro. That's my take. That's my point. Now, if we were to see again, I literally just touched my Stream Deck and we got that bump. I'm going to slide the Stream Deck. Oh, well, there I actually moved the flight controller. Yeah, okay. I was touching the cable and moving it. My point is that's pretty normal. There's nothing wrong with that. So what question am I supposed to be answering, John? John Rose. What question am I supposed to be answering, man? Oh, here we go. Wondering if someone can help me figure out... John's got a lot of questions in the super chat. Wondering if someone can help me figure out an issue I'm having with low flight times. I'm getting 3 minutes tops on a 1250 6S on my 5-inch build. Everyone agrees I should be getting 4 to 5 minute flight times. That's really difficult to say. Flying with a Hero 10, removing it does not really make much of a difference. The gyro not resetting to 0 is irrelevant, as I just showed. Regardless, a gyro wouldn't cause you to lose 2 minutes of flight time. Beta Flight 4.3 and the 5-inch freestyle with the GoPro tune, solder joints, yada, yada, yada. There are distinct oscillations at 40% throttle. 21.5 volts after sag. What's 21.5 divided by 6 is 3.6 volts. If you're resting at 3.6 volts, then I agree you're fully discharging your batteries. 2306, 1700 kV motor. You didn't say what brand battery you're using. The main thing that is going to cause your flight time to be low is your weight. And there you go. Oh, bingo. Your weight is 870 grams with GoPro, and you're in Denver, Colorado, so you're having to ride at a higher throttle. You have a heavy as shit quad. Sorry, 870 grams is heavy. It's heavy for a 5-inch. You have a heavy quad, and you're flying in Denver, so you need higher throttle position to get in the air. I don't think, and then it entirely depends on how aggressively you fly. It 1000% depends how aggressively you fly. But that doesn't sound, I mean, you need to lose weight. 717 grams for a 5-inch without a GoPro is freaking heavy. All of your friends who said, no, you should be getting 4 or 5 minutes. I disagree. I see 870 grams and I go, that's why your flight time is so short. So you got a chonker of a quad. Yeah. Bad for life. I agree. Especially being in Denver, you're using 51466 props. Especially being in Denver, and especially with a 1700 kV motor, as opposed to like a 1900 kV, you could go to higher pitch props, like 5236 or even 5536. Maybe if your quad can handle the 55. But the weight is the problem. John Rose says, people are saying with that weight, they are getting longer flight times. I don't know what to tell you. Taking off the GoPro does not make a difference. I mean, getting your weight down to 700 grams should make a difference. Now, on a 3-minute flight, it might make 30 seconds of difference, which is getting sort of swallowed up in the noise. You just can't tell. But taking a whole GoPro Hero 10's weight off has to make a difference in your flight time. The other thing that you haven't mentioned, and this is why I think your friends who are saying, well, you should be getting 5, you haven't mentioned anybody talk about your up tilt. If you're flying with 15 degrees of up tilt and I'm flying with 35 degrees of up tilt, you're going to get a minute or a minute and a half more flight time out of a typical 5-inch battery easily, maybe 2 minutes. because your up tilt means you're at a lower throttle position just to hover or cruise. So if you have high up tilt, and I don't know if you do, I'm betting you probably don't, but if your friends are flying at 20 degrees up tilt and you're flying at 35 or 40 degrees up tilt, that's why you're getting so much shorter flight time. Dragonwing says he needs to go to a 1556S. The thing is that if you have a heavy quad, going to a heavier battery will extend your flight time, but it'll also make your quad fly worse. So, John, post a picture of your build in the Discord if you want, and I'll tell you where I think you could potentially save weight. Yeah, larger diameter props will help because they're going to be more efficient. A larger battery will give you longer flight time, but at the expense. And then the other thing is, by the time you're running 5.5-inch props with a 1300 milliamp hour 6S and you're getting like at 950 grams, I think your 2306 motors are actually a little too small, and you would want a bigger motor to give you enough torque to actually be able to sort of handle that authoritatively. But post a picture of your build, John Rose, and we'll take a look at it. That's my official opinion, though, is your weight is too high, and your quad just can't sort of handle that weight, especially with 2306 motors. If you had like 2407s or maybe 2208s, you would be doing a little better. If your frame can handle 5.5-inch props, consider going to a 5.5-inch prop. So let's take a look at his build. He's gracious, and John, thank you for being a guinea pig here for us to sort of criticize your build. We'll try to be nice about it. Try not to be too mean. So here is his build. Let's see what we've got. Here's a side-on shot of the build. Why is this build 720 grams with the GoPro off? And where can you save weight? Like if you get it down to 650 grams. I mean, with a Hero 10, it's still going to be a chonker no matter what you do. Your modular GoPro mount and your vertical GoPro mount is adding a lot of weight. I'm going to guess that GoPro mount alone weighs like 40 grams. I'm going to guess the GoPro mount alone is adding a ton of weight. So if you had a GoPro mount that used the Hero 10's built-in little clips, I think you would cut this whole thing off. You wouldn't be able to do vertical mount, of course. So you'd cut this whole thing off and probably save 20 or 30 grams, I would guess. Your motors are not particularly heavy. The Source 1 frame, is it a Source 1 he said? I think he did, but let's verify. Source 1 V3. The Source 1 V3 weighs... Oh, good point. Lollipop Apple points out that you've got a lot of drag from your GoPro as well, and that's not helping. Source 1 V3 weighs... Oh, God, yeah. Look. Oh, you can't see this. Sorry. Source 1 V3 weighs 145 grams. That's a chonker of a frame. So you could easily save 20 grams by going to a 125 gram frame and not give up much in terms of durability. The difference between a 145 and 125 gram frame is a lot of careful design and a tiny bit of durability. But yeah, so if you were to ask me, how can I save weight? Number one, I would go to a lighter frame and save 20 to 25 grams. Like, for example... And you don't have to do this. I mean, ripping out your frame and spending $70 on a new frame is a big ask. But what's the weight? Doesn't have the weight listed. Can I hate you so much right now. I should look. Control F, weight. Tell me the weight. How many grams is it? How many grams is it weigh? No? Okay, you failed. Okay, product page. Ready? Control F, weight. No, nothing? You failed. You failed. You. It pisses me off so much. It's such a basic thing to ask. AOS 5 weight. Oh, you could find it somewhere else. I know. I know you can find that information somewhere. These are the two main places you go to look for it. No, nowhere. Is it grams? No. No. Lewis and Richard think it's around 105 to 115 grams. Just such a basic thing. Fix your website. Fix your store listing. Okay. So you could shave off 25 grams by going to a different frame. I guarantee you can shave off 20 grams to 30 grams by using a different GoPro mount. Like go for a skeleton mount or something that's not this full fat. This part down here is adding weight. You've got steel screws here. Go to aluminum screws. Not for the frame, but for the TPU. Go to aluminum screws. You'll shave a couple grams easily. I don't see anything in the frame that is blatantly heavy and wasteful. That's fine. Nothing wrong here with your flight control stack. I don't have any complaints there. Yeah. Those are two major things that would save you a little bit of weight. I don't know if it would get you up to 5 minutes. Yeah. Anyway. AOS 5, Banggood says 115 grams with metal hardware. Okay, fair enough. The thing is, losing the GoPro does not give me much more time, maybe 20 seconds. It's hard for me to believe that taking off like 170 grams of weight only gives you 20 seconds more flight time. Like, are you suggesting that you have a broken motor or something? I don't know. If you take off 100 and whatever a Hero 10 weighs, I think it's like 170, 180 grams. If you take off that much weight and you don't notice a significant difference in flight time, I don't know what else what else could be up? There you go. Alrighty. Take the battery out of the GoPro. Like, you should see a big difference in flight time. Are your batteries shitty? All right, this is going to be the last thing we're going to say, then we're going to move on from this topic. We've kind of been talking about this topic for a while. Are your batteries shitty? Like, no offense, J Rose. Are they shitty old batteries? That would do it. Okay. All right, moving on. Thank you, J Rose, for your generous donation and for being a patron. Greg M, thanks for a $10 super chat. I'm having issues with my Tango 2 Pro controller. It was working fine until I updated to Agent X. Now it's glitchy, slow, and sounds like a transformer. I wiped the SD card to see if that was the problem. Any ideas? Greg, I would say use TBS Agent M web app, not the TBS Agent X PC app, and flash the firmware to the latest. Yeah. Bent Props FPV suggests that John Rose check the amp draw in the OSD, only if it's calibrated though, or it won't matter. Cool Cat says, is it worth taking a GoPro battery out of a 5-inch though? Yes, in my opinion it is. Especially the Hero 10 has a chonker of a battery. It's like 40 grams or something. So, yeah, 40 grams is a big amount of weight. Justin Stepani, thanks for a $5 super chat. You almost always answer my troubleshooting questions. I really appreciate you. If you want to touch on my most recent issue, Skyliner and GoPro, thank you. Where are you, Justin? Where's your question, Justin? Appreciate your donation. Stefan Doncian, thank you for 25 RON. Thank you for all your help. What's an RON? RON is a Romanian leu. Thank you for 25 of them. Appreciate it. John Rose is running 1250 Pyrodrone Graphene. 1250 75C. 75C is like the absolute lowest C rating I would use for a 5-inch. 1250 75C is like, if it's like perfect, it's going to be okay. But 1250 6S and 1350 at 100C from Lion RC. Lion RC batteries are okay. It's what you could do, John, is one of your friends who's getting 5 minutes, borrow one of their batteries and just see if that's it. That's what I would say. Alrighty, moving on. Moving on from that. Thank you, John, for letting us criticize your build. Very kind of you to do that. John Rose, another $5 super chat for answering the first incorrect question. You're very generous, John. Thank John is already a patron. He already supports me. So, Vampire, thank you for a $5 super chat. How do you get the other 390 people to hit the like button? Yeah, hit the like button, you bozos. I had a person, I had a person in my chat last during the news get really offended that I said, "Hey, you bozos! What kind of bozo?" He was like, "Oh, you've insulted your viewer base." Sorry. Owen Peaker, C rating is BS, but it's not total nonsense. A 75C battery probably will perform worse than a 100C battery. It is BS, but probably. Okay, we're caught up on super chats. Yay. Let's go back to the live stream chat channel on my Discord and see what's going on. Oh, the likes are going up. Yay! Technobabbler has some weird behavior from a flight controller. I received 2 Raceflight V2 flight controllers. Well, that's the first thing that's weird, that you have a Raceflight flight controller. They came with Raceflight on them. Raceflight or Flight 1? Technobabbler, if you have a flight controller that will not go into DFU mode, the first thing to do is desolder everything from the UARTs. On an F4 flight controller, having a device on certain UARTs can cause it to go into DFU mode on that UART instead of USB. That could cause that problem. Okay. Justin Stepani has a question about Skyliner hot motors. Where is your question, though, Justin? Where is that question? Psych Limbo, that's correct. Psych Limbo in the Discord sticking up for me there. I didn't call everyone bozos. In that specific comment, I said, what are you doing running pre-release Betaflight 4.3 on a $40,000 cinema rig, ya bozos? And I mean, I stand by that. If you run, because they were complaining about Betaflight 4.3 failsafing. And I was like, look, if you're going to run Betaflight 4.3, a pre-release firmware that is known to potentially have bugs, on an expensive cinema rig, and then it crashes because it failsafed, like, I mean, I'm not saying like you had it coming, but I am saying like, you know, surprise Pikachu face, right? Who could have seen this coming? You know, and then that's where I get to bozos. I think this person thought I was criticizing everyone running 4.3 mistakenly. And then somebody came back and they were like, yeah, but the H7 flight controllers really require Betaflight 4.3. I'm like, okay, you had a good reason to do it. Like, still pretty risky. Pretty risky. No, that's the point, Mike. This guy was not flying a cinema rig. I think he thought I was calling everyone running Betaflight 4.3 a bozo, which is silly because I made a video about how to fly Betaflight 4.3, so I guess I am a bozo. Justin Stepani. Okay, it's an email. Justin Stepani has a question in email that he's super chatting me about. Okay, not that inbox. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Justin Stepani wants to talk about... Oh, okay. So Justin Stepani has a Rotor Riot Skyliner that they made for him. No! This one. Thank you. He has a Rotor Riot Skyliner that they made for him, and what happened was the motors were scorching hot, and then he smoked a motor. And he went back and said, it's the GoPro's weight that's causing the problem. Now, I don't believe that. The additional weight of a GoPro by itself should not cause smoked motors. However, I asked how the GoPro was mounted, because if you have a super wobbly mount, it can cause hot motors due to vibration problems. But it looks like, Justin, is this Drib's actual mount? So this is Drib's actual mount. So that's like, clearly he stands behind that design. And he flies it with no problem. Look at him, good old ESCs on the arm. Classic. Like if the GoPro was loose, or if the GoPro was sticking out, like once upon a time I put a 360 cam on a long stalk, and it just vibrated so much it made my motors super hot and my quad could barely fly. That's clearly not what's going on here. I really think you have to go back to Rotor Riot support and ask them to explain this. You're using Drib's mount. They built the quad for you. Simply adding an additional 100 grams, 120, 140, whatever grams of weight should not cause the motors to get so hot that they smoke. I would treat this as a customer service issue. I would not be so quick to just assume that it was my fault for putting the GoPro on. Everything here is designed by and approved by Rotor Riot. So I don't see why the motors should get hot and smoke. And I'm not saying, I don't want you to go to Rotor Riot and say, Bardwell said this was your fault. I'm not saying that, but I am saying I would want to dig in further. I wouldn't want to just be like, I guess it was my fault for putting the GoPro on. Nothing about what I see in your photos looks inherently problematic. And if you had built this yourself, I'd be like, hey, it's on you. But you bought a bind and fly from them. They built it. They test flew it. If there's something wrong with the build, it's their fault, unless you broke it. And it's their camera mount. It's Drib's camera mount. So I don't see why there should be a problem. If it's a filter or PID issue, again, that goes back to Rotor Riot. Did you change the firmware? Did you plug into Betaflight and change a bunch of stuff? Or is it exactly as they delivered it? If it's as they delivered it, then I think I would want to push them a little harder to see why the motor smoked. That's what I would say. Alrighty. Johnny DRC. The reason why people say that C rating of batteries is BS is that there is no universal standard way of measuring C rating. Which, like, think about gasoline, right? Gasoline at the pump. When it says it's 87 octane, there's a standard way of measuring the octane of gasoline. Actually, there are several standards, but that's beside the point. In the United States, when you go to a gas station and it says this is 87 octane gasoline, that gasoline is the same octane at every single pump across the United States. If it says 87 octane, it's the same octane, period. There's a regulation about that. With C rating, there is no universal standard way of measuring and defining C rating. And because of that, there's no way to really compare. An 80C battery from Tattoo is probably going to perform better than an 80C battery from your random, Amazon mega pack. And manufacturers can just lie. They can just lie. You go to Amazon and you find some $10 1000C battery. It's not. They just slap that on the label. They don't care. So C rating is not total BS. When Tattoo sells you a 120C battery, it probably has a different design and a different chemistry than when Tattoo sells you like a 100C battery. But if you have two 80C batteries, they may perform very differently. Hey, Ciati FPV is here. Good to see you, Ciati. Good to see you, man. Mikhail Anderson says the standard for C ratings is take whatever number our competition has and add 10. There's a little bit of truth to that. There's a little bit of truth. The best advice for batteries is buy from reputable manufacturers. CNHL is reputable. GNB is reputable. Tattoo is reputable. There are reputable manufacturers, and there are house brands that repackage. Like the Speedy Pizza battery is a CNHL rebrand. Race Day Quads batteries, do they still have their in-house batteries? I think they do. Those are GNB cells, so they're good quality. Yeah. And then buy the highest C rating you can reasonably afford, I guess, is one way to put it. Owen Peaker says, the packs from Unmanned Tech are the best I've found. Here's the thing, Owen. I don't know about that pack specifically, but when a small company or even a medium-sized company comes out with a house brand, it's basically like they didn't contract with a factory to make cells only for them. That didn't happen. They don't have the volume to justify that investment. Even I don't know, like I'm thinking now of the Pyrodrone house brand. Pyrodrone is a big store, one of the biggest in the United States, maybe one of the biggest in the world. They're up there. Okay? In the top 5, let's say, I would guess. And the Pyrodrone house brand batteries, I would bet good money that they go to somebody. CNHL, GNB, Tattoo. I don't know who they go to, but they just go there and they say, will you sell me a battery and rebrand it as my house brand? That is it. And it's especially true if it's a smaller shop, like Unmanned Tech in the UK. If they have a house brand battery, I guarantee they're just buying 100 or 500 at a time from Tattoo, GNB, CNHL, one of those companies. And then they're just putting their logo on it. There's nothing wrong with that, although it is a little confusing. Like, I understand you want a house brand of battery and you want to like advertise, but people come out of the woodwork and they go, you know who's the best battery I've ever seen? And I'm like, it's the same battery. It's the same battery that you can buy straight from CNHL, GNB, Tattoo, whoever. It's the same battery. Like, why would Tattoo give like a really good secret. We're not selling this cell under our brand, but we'll give it to this tiny little store that's going to sell, 50 or 100 a month. Yeah. Why would they do that? Why would they give the good stuff to this other store and not sell it themselves? So. In fact, in my experience, what actually happens is if the battery manufacturer is not reputable, they pawn off their shitty batteries to you. Rotor-Riot had this happen. So Rotor-Riot has in the past had some, like they've had the practice battery, for example. There was a manufacturer. It wasn't any of the three I've been talking about. It was someone you haven't heard of. It was a back-end manufacturer of cells, or at least a supplier of cells. So I just want to make sure nobody thinks I'm talking about GNB, CNHL, or Tattoo, which in my experience have been very good and don't do this kind of shenanigans. But Rotor-Riot was talking to a manufacturer, and they sent them some sample packs. And Rotor-Riot tested the sample packs, and they were great. Loved them. They were fantastic. So they put in an order for, 500, 1,000, however many they ordered. And they came, and they tested them, and they were all shitty. They had just sent them bad packs. And then, of course, they didn't sell them, because that would be unethical. But, yeah. You gotta stay on top of it. So buy good quality batteries is my point, from manufacturers who are trustworthy. And if you buy a store's vanity brand, like a Pyrodrone or an iFlight battery or a Race Day Quads. What about Luminaire? Who makes the Luminaire Xylos? I don't actually know. And the Luminaire N2O was legitimately something was different about that in my bench testing. It was legitimately an interesting cell. I don't know about Luminaire, who manufactures theirs. But buy quality cells from quality, reputable manufacturers. And if you buy a house brand, try to figure out who makes it. And know that's what you're getting. Okay. Little rant about batteries there. Ovonic is just Tattoo, right? Ovonic is just Tattoo's budget brand. Is that correct? That's what I think. No, don't. James Reedy, don't dispose of batteries by poking a hole in them. Please, don't do that. Mikhail Anderson, there was an issue with AUline. AUline didn't send good cells to reviewers and bad ones to customers. I got bad sales from AUline as well. And AUline said they did a recall, but I'm a little turned off on them because that whole thing happened. Remy Tim says, isn't it true that cell manufacturing is so inconsistent that someone like Tattoo will make 1 million cells and sort them and price them out based on how they bench test? I'm not sure about that, Remy Tim. I'd be surprised to learn that battery cells that process is called binning. Binning. I'd be surprised to hear that batteries were subject to binning. Because, like, if you think about how they manufacture the cells, a sheet of the material comes off the machine, and then they sort of fold the sheet into shapes based on how big and cut it based on how big it. But the consistency of the manufacturing process is going to should be the same for the whole sheet of material. And I would be surprised to learn, because to test a battery also requires a fair amount of labor. So I'd be surprised to learn that they were binning individual cells. Maybe they test like one out of the batch, and that batch gets a certain rating. But I could be wrong. I do agree that throwing batteries in salt water is one of the safest ways to discharge them. However, you should be aware that if you throw a battery in salt water, it will generate chlorine and hydrogen gas from the salt. And it can generate enough hydrogen or chlorine gas to present a hazard if it was done in a closed area. So if you're going to use the salt bucket, put it on your porch or your driveway. Don't do it indoors. We got a question here from Rumpelwicht. Rumpelwicht. Can I bind a beta FPV module with a Happy Model receiver? If you mean Express LRS, yes. Yep. You can bind between different Express LRS manufacturers. All Express LRS gear is compatible. However, you can't bind a 900 megahertz to a 2.4 gigahertz or vice versa. DJ Spinage reminds us not to discharge batteries in a metal bucket. Yes, that's true. Squirrely, thank you for a $2 super chat. Is CNHL Black a decent brand that you know? Yes, CNHL Black are decent. Joe G wants to know if Hovu batteries are any good. I have never heard of them. I assume that they are not. How long does the salt method take? Sam, to get it down, it just takes a couple hours to get it down almost completely dead, in my experience. It depends on how much salt you've got. Overnight should be fine. Dragonwing wants to know if you can turn off the touchscreen in EdgeTX. Can you disable the touchscreen entirely in EdgeTX? I mean, it seems like you should be able to do that. Where would you do that? Is it in radio setup? Chat, see if you can get the answer before me. Can you disable the touchscreen in EdgeTX on the Radio Master TX16S? Sound, barometer, haptic, alarms, backlight. That's not it. What about in the hardware section? Hardware. No. It's just switches. I don't see where you can disable it. Tommy Brickler says yes. Where is the setting, Tommy? It's not in radio setup or hardware as far as I can tell. Say yay, there is no danger to reaching into the saltwater bucket. There's no danger. Dave T. EdgeTX 2.6 disabled the ability to completely turn the screen off because they don't want you to lock yourself out and not be able to configure it if you screw up the configuration. Stu22 asks, do quad motors tire out or wear out over time? Mine are almost 4 years old and full throttle is not what it used to be. I would say that like the bearings wear out. You could have lost lubrication in the bearings or the bearings could be gravelly. After 4 years of flying, you probably beat the crap out of them. They may be off balance. If you have overheated them, the magnets could have lost strength. That absolutely can happen. So there are ways which a motor could lose strength over time. Anybody know how to turn off the EdgeTX touchscreen? Let's see here. I mean, after 4 years, I think you deserve a new set of motors. That's what I would say. Luca is trying to get help with Uncrashed Simulator. Luca, you gotta... the drone takes off without him moving the throttle. You gotta check your endpoints. Rerun the simulator calibration and check your endpoints in Uncrashed. Oh, Iratzi B Productions says that it's a special function. All right. Let's see here. Let's look in the special functions. Global functions. So we want on function. Backlight, screenshot, racing mode, trainer. I don't see it. Let me roll through another. Vario, haptic, SD logs, backlight, screenshot. I don't see it in special functions, I'm sorry to say. I'm sorry to say I don't see it there. I don't think it's there. Fuba44 wants to know, thank you for 50 Danish kroner. What is currently the best quality small size controller for Express LRS? I mean, clearly you're looking at either the Radio Master Zorro or the Jumper T-Lite. The T-Lite has a 1 watt internal module, which some would say gives it an edge. I think the form factor of the Zorro and the switch layout is superior, but the Zorro has much smaller batteries that give some people pause. And the Zorro only goes up to 250 milliwatts, whereas the T-Lite will go to 1 watt. So either of those. You guys, it might be because I'm on, I think I'm still on 2.5. That may be why I'm not seeing it. They say it's in global functions under racing mode. Oh, yeah, no. So I think that must have been added in 2.6, and I don't have it because I'm still on 2.5. Okay, so the answer is it's a global function that disables the touchscreen. It does exist. It's in global functions. Hasn't the Zorro got an external battery plug? That is correct, Cool Cat. It does. Some people feel that that's annoying and they don't like it. So you have to decide for yourself. Alrighty. Special functions or global functions? Oh, maybe it's only under, maybe it's model specific. You would think it would be under global functions, wouldn't you? Compost Pile, thank you for that correction. I said T-Lite when I meant T-Pro. That is correct. The Zorro or the T-Pro, not the T-Lite. Apologize for that. That was a misspeak. The thing is, Jeckley says the controller should not be dependent on an external battery. I mean, sure. I mean, the battery's got to... If it unplugs, it's not like it's going to just immediately stop working. Jelmer Himstra wants to know, what's a good sub-250 Cinewhoop frame? I mean, I think the two that I would have you look at today are the GEP-RC Cinelog 2.5. If you need to stay under 250 grams, I think you're going to be looking at a 2.5 inch. Or the ProTech 2.5. That's what I would say. That's funny. Sandra DeBronner is sharing with us this picture so people can see. If you want to disable the touchscreen on your Edge TX radio, there is a special function called No Touch. No touch! No touchy! No touchy! No touchy. Good movie, Emperor's Groove. But you got to be on EdgeTX 2.6 apparently, because I don't have that. Dave T, very glad to hear that 1-bit mode saved your issue with your daughter's quad. Glad to hear that fixed it for you. Thank you, EdgeTX developers. Highly underrated movie. Highly underrated. Highly underrated. John Goodman, David Spade, whoever the guy is who played Putty on Seinfeld. I can't remember his name. Highly underrated. Eartha Kitt, I think. Sealor FPV says, how do I eliminate yaw hop on a heavy quad? Reduce your yaw rate. Don't yaw so fast. With heavy quad, big props, big heavy motors, it's very hard to eliminate yaw hop because the down spinning motors just... So yaw hop is when you do a yaw input and the quad gains altitude. And the reason for it is that the motors can accelerate faster than they can decelerate. Acceleration is stronger than braking. And as a result, when you yaw, the motors that speed up faster than the motors that slow down. And you have a net increase in thrust. The way to eliminate yaw hop is to have smaller, lighter props, have more powerful motors. But the problem is that larger motors have more rotational mass, and therefore they may decelerate worse. So maybe smaller motors will decelerate better. But in general, on big quads, it's very difficult to have fast yaw rate without yaw hop. You can change the yaw accel limit parameter in the Betaflight CLI. You can reduce the yaw accel limit, which will cause it to accelerate slower on yaw and may reduce that. But in general, it's just something you have to live. In general, big quads shouldn't have fast yaw movements. That's not what they're for. JJ, your question about RSSI and iNav, I don't know the answer. I think, JJ, that iNav added the ability to put RSSI in the warning element, but I don't know enough about iNav to for sure know how to turn it on. Can anybody help JJ with this question? I believe iNav supports RSSI in the warning element. Or the pilot. Oh, no, I'm sorry. iNav supports the warning element in the pilot name. I don't know. I do remember. iNav has a generic text string you can fill out to make the pilot name be whatever you want. Yes. I do remember. Boom! GitHub to the rescue! Yeah. What does it support? Does it support LQ and does it support LQ and RSSI though? No. Is it generic? Can you add any telemetry sensor or only specific ones? It's unclear to me whether you can get all elements or just like these elements. Does anybody know the answer? Warnings? No. See, here we go. Thank you. What a handsome man. People say he looks like me. I don't know. All I know is he is a handsome, handsome man. It looks like you can have throttle position, trip distance, 3D speed, warnings, and efficiency. You cannot have RSSI. Pavel, give them RSSI and LQ. There you go. There's your answer, sort of. So you can still do the aux channel method, though. Assuming you're using Crossfire, or ExpressLRS, or Ghost. You can still do the aux channel method. Bitterroot FPV asks, how do I decide what ESC to flash when flashing Bluejay? It's whatever firmware is currently on your ESC. It's just whatever is currently on your ESC, you flash the same thing. That's the answer. So just read setup, look at what's currently on your ESC, and then flash that. I'm sure. I wonder if there's something else I'm missing that it's more complicated. That seems like that's simple and somewhat obvious. So maybe that answer is not very helpful. It's like, yeah, I know shit. I know Bardwell, but I don't know what the but is. Xenix said, thank you for being a patron, Xenix, in the Discord server. Appreciate that. Let's say I've got a Maytech ExpressLRS R24D diversity receiver. Okay, I just did. I said that. It comes with 2 sleeve dipole antennas. Can I swap them? Sure. I'd have to use an equal length monopole. Not sure about that. Xenix, here's what I know. Happy Model shipped their dipole antennas, and they were a weird length that made people think they were tuned wrong. But then Sander DeBronner tested them and said they had correct SWR and were tuned correctly. So, yeah, Sander, I see that he's typing. He's going to give us a better answer. I wouldn't assume that the length of the monopole would need to be exactly the same as the length of the dipole. Sander, that's correct. I said Happy Model, not Maytech. My point is that just because the dipole is a certain length doesn't mean that that's the same length that you would want a monopole cut to. Would it just be like, you know, whatever, 28 millimeter or something? Whatever, 2.4 gigahertz? I mean, you could just get some 2.4 gigahertz RXSR antennas and they should work. Yeah, everybody is like, well, 2.4 gigahertz is 31 millimeters, is the wavelength, or whatever it is. I think it's, is that a half wave? I think that's a half wave. But it's not necessarily true that a 2.4 gigahertz antenna that is not that length is designed wrong. Sandra says a monopole the same length, fed at the end, would be high resistance. The answer is no, not the same length. Alrighty. Enigma FPV, thank you so much for a €10 super chat. And apparently, when you leave a super chat, you can put a link, a YouTube link. He wants us to look at this video. And specifically, he wants us to look at 1 minute, 21 seconds in the video and talk about the vibration. He says the vibrations only happen at high altitudes while cruising. All right, we're going to go to 1 minute-ish, and our vibration's at 121. What do we got? Do we have motor noise? No. And I don't want to play the music. All right. So I'm just looking. I'm looking at the horizon. I'm looking for vibrations. What an interesting. Where is this? What an interesting landscape. Kind of deserty and rocky. 120. Here we go. There's. Oh, yeah, I saw that vibration. That's difficult to figure out, I got to tell you. And the reason I say that is I can see the kind of jitter that you're seeing, but it doesn't look obviously like vibration. I wonder if it is prop wash altitude, prop wash oscillation being covered up by stabilization. Enigma, do you have stabilization enabled during this video? It almost looks like a stuttery frame rate, although I don't think that it is. So I don't see any actual vibration. It's such high frequency. If it was prop wash oscillation, I would expect to at least be able to see it. I'd love to hear the motors, but I don't think so. So I don't see any actual vibration, though, or oscillation. It's just like a little bit of a blurriness in the frame. That makes me wonder if you've got stabilization turned on and the stabilization is struggling with your prop wash oscillation, because the way you're descending makes me think you're in prop wash. It's pretty freaking subtle, I'll tell you that. Now here at 124, that's just wind. That little bobbling there is just wind, right? Surely. Keep watching after the 121 mark. Stabilization is on, okay. Like right at 121, I saw what looked like wind to me. Don't see anything here. Don't see anything here. So when I'm looking for vibration or oscillation, I'm usually looking at the horizon. I'm usually not looking up close. It'll be accentuated the further away the obstacle is, and the horizon is a nice clean line that you can see vibration. The closest I saw was right around 124. And that, to me, looks like wind. That's just wind that got through your stabilization. Can I see it? No? Go back further. That's some weird shuttery frame rate thing. I don't know what that is. Here, I would call that wind. That's just wind that got through. It was so big that it got through your stabilization. That's what I think. I don't think there's a lot you can do about that. I mean, if there's strong enough wind, you're going to get blown around. CC, thank you for a $5 super chat. Eric LaPlante, thank you for a $5 super chat. We'll be traveling to the EU. I run Crossfire on my quads. Will changing the frequency from 915 to 868 lock it to 868? No. You just leave the region open, but change the frequency to 868. If you change the region, it will lock, and you can unlock it. There's a button press to unlock it. Leave the region open and just change the frequency. Thank you, CC, for another $5 super chat. Thank you for your generosity. Appreciate it. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I was having so much fun. I didn't even realize it's 3 o'clock. The stream is over. Don't go though. Instead, go watch Aaron Ciotti, who is streaming. Ciotti, did you post the link? Ciotti, post the link to your stream, dude. Mika, you could change the low throttle in beta flight. That's what you should do. Change the throttle low threshold in beta flight if you want to be at 0 throttle lower. I guess in theory you could change the output curve. Yeah. There it is. Sunday Q&A. DJI is a pain in his neck. All right, there is Ciotti's link. Hope you have a great stream, Ciotti. I'm going to go get out and fly in this beautiful weather. Have a beautiful afternoon, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. for the Monday live stream. Happy flying, everybody.